thank you very much for the invitation to attend this conference. And let me introduce myself. I work in the European Commission in the Regional Policy Directorate General, and not the internal market as it is on the program. Now, for me, it's really interesting, all this discussion, because most of our work is effectively in Central Eastern Europe. And from your discussions from today's event, we have a very interesting angle from a developed country and not a country which is trying to catch up with the more developed ones. So for those countries, you are a model. Now, your discussion shows that a lot is still to be done. And if I may say, looking from the EU angle, one would clearly note that the current economic and financial crisis has highlighted the structural weaknesses of Europe's economies, countries, and regions. And as a magnifying lens, it has laid bare the significant disparities, inequalities between and within regions in terms of employment, of productivity, competitiveness, gross value added. The second thing one certainly notes is that the stabilization of the economy and the return to growth is proving and has proved to be much more difficult and a real test, not only for national governments, but for Europe's institutions and the regions themselves. Europe needs to shape up and put its assets and forces back into the recovery path so that it tackles its structural weaknesses and adjusts to the competitive pressure put by the new countries, the China, Brazil, and India, just to name those, but there are others, and of course to meet the challenges of the future, investing to cope with climate change, demographic change, and not least adapt to the knowledge-based economy. Well, that's quite a lot. So I will agree to the previous speaker who said that infrastructure investment is a capital step, is key to meet this challenge. And yes, indeed, we have exactly the same view. What is particular in our way, from where I come from the EU angle, is that we firmly believe that in harnessing member states and the union's action, this adds up to a powerful lever to face those challenges. And the cohesion policy, the code name we use to qualify the regional policy interventions, clearly has a special role by promoting, on the one hand, investments to cope with the real needs in the real economy and support the structural change, and on the other hand, to share the costs and the benefits more evenly across Europe. This is what we call solidarity, and cohesion policy is in the center and gives the full meaning to that notion. Now, as you know, cohesion is often seen as a policy about the dispersal of EU funds. Well, this may be true, it disperses these funds, but when you look at the policy itself, it has effective impact, it has tangible results, and what of course is key to all this, it's the programming, the planning, strategic approach it has, as the objectives are in the medium to the long term. This makes also difficult to defend many times the policy, because people say, and what did you achieve? So indeed, you cannot describe it in terms of added value or increased growth, but just to give you from the previous programming period, the 2000-2006 period, just some numbers, if we may. the European Regional Development Fund has supported like the development of 2,000 kilometers of motorways. This is about a quarter of all motorways built in Europe at that time. 4,000 kilometers of rail network. That's quite significant. Evaluations have reported increased investment among businesses and in the so-called Objective 2 regions, the more developed regions, estimates account for jobs of about 750,000 jobs, and in Objective 1 regions more than that as net jobs created through these investments. So indeed, that's, I think, the challenge also for the UK is that the short term may not be, the short-term results may not be so visible, but one needs to have this longer-term view to be able to assess really the impact and effectiveness of this policy. Now, on our on our side, over the next 7 years, from 2007 to 2013, the ERDF and Cohesion Fund and the European Social Fund are going to invest 347 billion euros. And from that, the 270 billion is ERDF and Cohesion Fund alone, which are under our Directorate General DG Regio policy. Now, a large share of this amount, the number is we don't include in the total number the technical assistance and some extra money for territorial cooperation. But as you can see, this is the EU 10, and of course the bulk of the money, EU 10 are the new member states plus the new ones, Bulgaria, Romania. The bulk of the money is in those regions. And, well, the contribution to the UK is 5.5 billion. With the decline of the pound, this means more money still for the UK in real terms. Now, a large share of these 270 billion of the ERDF and the Cohesion Fund will go to infrastructure development. This is a fact. And it may, when you look at it, it may be an awful lot of money, because to that you need to add the national co-financing, the national part, and of course private capital. In trying to give you a bit more insight, these are the main fields of intervention. You may wish to know that like 81 billion amounts to the transport sector. As you see, it's the biggest that have been allocated according to the member states program. There is like 46.5 billion in the environment, more than 10 billion in energy. Well, as you can see, transport, environment, energy, all these are in infrastructures. In some of the other areas, of course, it's difficult to divide the amount, because there you may have some productive investment developments as well in RTD, infrastructure developments, but I can't give you a fair share of infrastructure and other type of spending. Now, given this morning's discussion, you may note that broadband is not that big, and I must say these figures reflect the allocation and the state of the economy, mostly in those less developed regions, which is who are the main beneficiaries of the funds. Now, I don't want to be defensive, but once again, this is the Commission community, not Commission, EU funds. Therefore, to this and for broadband, for example, you would have much more private capital involved, as in the utility sector, in energy, in waste. There are also private investors, whereas in roads there is more public investment involved.